Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today, we're cracking open a declassified file on a story of unbelievable courage and genius from the 1971 Indo-Pak War. Now, this isn't some Hollywood movie. This is the real, raw story of what's been called the Great Indian Escape. All right, let's set the scene. It's August 13th, 1972. You're in Rawalpindi Prison, Pakistan. In the dead of night, a guard doing his rounds makes a shocking discovery. 3 Indian prisoners of war, they've just vanished from a locked cell. No signs of a break-in, no guards were bribed. They're simply gone. So how on earth did they do it? And, maybe even more puzzling, why was a 4th pilot left behind? To even begin to understand this impossible escape, we have to get inside the head of the man who planned it all, Flight Lieutenant Dilip Palkar. See, his strategic brilliance wasn't just about the escape itself. It was on full display from the very moment he was captured. We're just 7 days into this really intense 13-day war. Palkar manages to take out a critical Pakistani radar station, a huge success. But on the flight back, his jet gets hit. He has no choice but to eject, and he parachutes right down into the heart of enemy territory. He lands right in the middle of a furious mob. But before things could get really ugly, the Pakistani army steps in. Why? Because they knew that a captured fighter pilot is an absolute goldmine of intelligence. For Palkar, the war might be winding down, but his own personal ordeal was just beginning. During his interrogation, they gave him an impossible choice. Draw a detailed map of the highly strategic Adampur Air Base, or face, well, you can imagine the torture. This is where Palkar plays this brilliant mind game. He confidently takes the pen and paper, and he draws a perfect, detailed, totally convincing map of Mumbai's commercial Santa Cruz Airport, completely useless to the Pakistani military. So the war ends, but there's no prisoner exchange in sight. Palkar's patience is running thin. He knows it's actually his duty as a soldier to try and escape. He convinces 2 of his fellow pilots, M.S. Grewal and Harish Singhji, that their only ticket home was one they had to punch themselves. It was time to start digging. Okay, first move, they had to secure a transfer to cell number 4. After months of just watching and waiting, they knew this was the one. It offered 3 huge advantages. It was the biggest cell, it was the closest to the outer wall, and, critically, it was located in a guard's blind spot. So how in the world do you dig a tunnel through a prison wall with absolutely no tools? Well, you get creative. Their toolkit was, honestly, a masterpiece of improvisation. They started by growing out their beards, giving them the perfect excuse to request a pair of scissors. Then, day after day, they just casually pocketed spoons and forks from the mess hall. These simple, everyday items, they became their instruments of freedom. Their digging became this nightly ritual, and they had a super strict protocol. 2 guys would dig in shifts while the other stood watch. The entrance was always hidden under a bed, and before sunrise, they would meticulously put the bricks back in place, all the dirt and debris hidden in plain sight, right at the bottom of the care packages they got from home. You know, their planning went way beyond just digging. They decided not to head for the Indian border. That's what everyone would expect. Their target was neutral Afghanistan. But to get there, they needed a map. And this is genius. Palkar actually charmed a senior Pakistani officer into giving him one, pretending he was just planning a trip to the Olympics. Incredible. But they came incredibly close to disaster. One night, the cloth they used to plug the tunnel entrance, it started moving. They absolutely froze. They were sure a guard had found them. But after a few super tense moments, they realized it was just a stray cat. Still, that close call was a pretty sharp reminder of the razor's edge they were living on. After months and months of this painstaking work, the night finally came. August 13th, 1972. Security was a bit lax because Pakistan's Independence Day was coming up, and a fierce storm was raging outside, giving them the perfect cover. It was go time. Dressed in local Patani suits that a prison tailor had made for them, they completely shed their military identities. For this journey, they adopted new names. They became new people. But what about that 4th pilot, V.S. Chadi? Well, in an absolutely incredible act of sacrifice, he chose to stay behind. He arranged pillows under the blankets in their beds to make it look like they were all still sleeping, a simple trick to buy his friends precious, precious hours. So they made it out, they caught a bus, and they got agonizingly close to the border. Their whole plan hinged on reaching the Landi Khana railway station. But their otherwise perfect plan had one fatal flaw. the map they were using was old. That station hadn't been in service for 40 years. Stranded and desperate, they tried to hire a taxi, but their accents immediately made the driver suspicious. Parlorcar tried to bluff his way out, claiming they were Air Force officers on vacation, but it just didn't work. Within minutes, the local police were there, and their incredible journey to freedom was over. After they were recaptured, the men had to endure 30 days in solitary confinement. And then, in a twist of irony, they were sent home in an official prisoner exchange in December 1972 anyway. Now, you might be thinking, wait a minute, why go through all that trouble just to be sent home a few months later anyway? Was it all just impatience? This, right here, is where the story pivots from a daring escape to a much darker and still unresolved mystery. 54. I want you to remember that number. 54. This is the number of Indian soldiers and airmen from the 1971 war who were confirmed to have been captured by Pakistan, but who never, ever came home. They became known as the Missing 54. Their fates are completely unknown. They just entered a void, officially classified as missing in action. And for decades, even though Pakistan officially denied it, these little fragments of evidence have kept surfacing. A photo in Time magazine of a captured major who just never returned. A journalist's report on Indian POWs being driven mad by torture. Even a family that swore they saw their pilot son in a Pakistani jail years after he was declared missing. And look, this isn't just some dusty old history. As recently as 2019, India's then Chief of Defense Staff, General Bipin Rawat, publicly confirmed that the military still believes these 54 men are in Pakistani custody. Their fate remains a painful, unanswered question. And this completely reframes the true stakes of their gamble, doesn't it? Parlorcar and his men weren't just being impatient. They were staring into the terrifying possibility that diplomacy might fail, that the world might just forget about them. They weren't just digging for freedom. They were digging to avoid becoming ghosts themselves, lost forever in the fog of war.